My name is Brian, Chapter 8. It's titled Brian 2 Points. It's the morning of the first big test in social studies. While I'm riding my bike down our street, I review the causes for the Revolutionary War. I only remember two. I decide to go to the resource room after lunch and review everything with Miss Crandall one more time. I hate tests. When I take a test, my head pounds. I get so nervous about not understanding the questions that the letters on the page look like a foreign language. I can't read the simplest word. As I turn the corner onto Main Street, I swerve into the curb to keep from crashing into three bikers going in the opposite direction. It's John, Richie, and Dan. "Hey man, where you going?" Richie asked. "Where does it look like I'm going?" I asked back. "Where are you going?" "To get you, man," John says. "Didn't you hear the radio? There's no school today." The only reason they ever cancel school over the radio is for snow days. I look up at the bright blue October sky and ask, "How come?" Richie said, "There's some kind of an emergency with the furnace. They've got to fix it, but it's too dangerous to do with kids in the building, so no school." I look around at my friends' happy faces and ask, "So this is true? You're not kidding?" "Scout's honor," John answers. "Yahoo!" I shouted. "No social studies test." I turn my bike around and we yahoo and shout cheers all the way to Route 343. By 8:30, we'd usually be starting math class. We're hanging out in our hideout drinking sodas and passing around potato chips. Through the shed window, I count 5 blue jays in the apple orchard. It feels like summer again. I think, these 3 guys are my pals. John and I had a little misunderstanding, but now we'll get it back together. I decide to forgive John for bringing the 8th graders to our hideout and for embarrassing me in front of the entire class. I take a handful of chips and pass the bag to Richie. "Man," Richie says, "this is more like it. That school is beginning to bug me." "Bingham is bugging me," John says. "He's getting on my nerves. I'm going to have to do something to put him into his place." "I don't think you should mess with him," Dan says. "He's too awesome." "Are you guys still afraid of him?" John asks. "Didn't I tell you he's not going to do anything to us?" "He wouldn't dare. It's his first year here. He's got to do good or he's out of the door, like Mrs. Oakley." "I don't know," Dan comments. "You guys are such wimps," John continues. "Just because he's black, you think he's dangerous. You're being prejudiced, especially you, Dan." I want to say that the reason we don't have to be afraid of Mr. Bingham is because he's a nice guy, but I just keep my mouth shut. I don't want to be called a teacher's pet again. "Listen, you guys," John says, "if I do pull a joke on Bingham, I expect all of you to be behind me, okay?" "What are you going to do?" I ask him. He crumbles up the empty potato chip bag, tosses it to me, and says, "I'll think of something." His grin says he already has. I don't like the idea of playing a joke on Mr. Bingham, especially now that he's going through so much trouble to help me. "So what are we going to do?" Richie asks. "Let's hang out in the big house," John suggests. "I think, but don't say, just like you and Richie did with Mac and those other 8th grade clowns." A few minutes later, we're sliding around in our sock feet on the front hall marble floor. "Hey, John," Richie says, "this hallway's bigger than your whole house." John puts his finger to his lip. "Shh, don't use names. The place might be bugged with tape recorders." Did he look at me in a funny way when he said that? "Let's play hide and seek," Richie says. "Forget it," I say. "That's a baby game." But John says, "It won't be a baby game in this house with all these rooms. It'll be freak out time. Let's do it. Dan, you be first. Close your eyes and count to 50 and we'll all hide." Dan closes his eyes and starts counting. 1, 2, 3. I don't trust John and Richie and figure Dan and I better stick together. I hide behind the front hall staircase with the toe of my sneakers sticking out so that he would find me right away. Then the two of us go through the house looking for Richie and John. It takes a long time to find them, and it's scary to open a door and not know what'll be on the other side. We finally find John hiding under a sheet in a bathtub on the 2nd floor, and Richie was in a closet on the 3rd floor. Dan thinks Richie was real brave to stay alone in a dark closet for all the time that it took us to find him, but I think he hung out in the room until he heard us coming, and then he went in the closet. After that, we all lied on the floor in the living room facing the back lawn. I watch the leaves falling off the trees and look for birds. "I wonder what it would be like to live here," I ask out loud. "You know, if you were real rich and could afford it and everything. What would you do if you had this whole place to yourself?" "First of all, I wouldn't be alone," John says. "I'd fill it with beautiful women, and I'd get me the best sound system in the world, with music piped in every room, and I'd have at least 5 VCRs and TVs, and a swimming pool, definitely a swimming pool. Me too, Richie says, and lots of servants. I'd put movie equipment in here, Dan says, not just to watch movies, but to make them. I'd get the best machines for doing special effects. Then I'd make monster films, or just do the special effects for other people's films. Man, that'd be great. What about you? John asked me. I know exactly what I'd do, but I don't feel like telling John, so I'd just say, nothing special. Just live here and have fun. But I'm thinking first I'd study to be a scientist who knows all about birds. An ornithologist. And then I'd look the whole estate into a bird sanctuary and invite other ones to do research with me. We'd take pictures and write about the birds. And I'd invite my grandpa Al to live here too. He could grow vegetables and take care of the orchard and build things with me. He'd love that. If my father wanted to come over, I'd let him, but the minute he was mean to someone or embarrassed me, I'd send him away. Tyson could live with us if he wanted, and so could my mother, and maybe even Hillary, but they'd probably want to stay home with my father. I guess Grandpa and I would visit them, but anytime I wanted, I'd know I could walk out of their house, get in my big van, and drive home to the bird sanctuary. Thursday night, I studied for my social studies test again. On the way to school, I review the causes of the Revolutionary War. I finally know them all. I get to the classroom just as the bell is ringing. Richie, Dan, and John are already in their seats. John gives me a big high five and grins as I pass him. Brian, my man, he says. Before I have a chance to sit down, Mr. Bingham says, Brian, could I have your absentee note, please? Yours too, Dan. For what? I ask. What note, sir? Dan asks. Your absentee notes for missing school yesterday, Mr. Bingham says. But there wasn't any school, I tell Mr. Bingham, because of the furnace. It was on the radio. It was too dangerous to be here, Dan added. The whole class is hooting with laughter, especially John and Richie, who are also scratching their heads. Isabel's laughing so hard that she doesn't even notice that they're doing it. Mr. Bingham asks, Boys, did you hear that school was closed on the radio, or did someone tell you? Someone told us, I say. Told us that they heard it on the radio. Who? Mr. Bingham asks. Dan and I exchange a glance that means we're not going to squeal on John and Richie, though I'm not quite sure why. Some guys on bikes, I tell Mr. Bingham. When I sit down, Isabel whispers to me, An emergency with a furnace in October? You couldn't make up anything better than that? I feel like scratching my head and under my arms too right in her face, but I won't give John the satisfaction. If I scratch, he'll think that I think what he did is funny, and it's not one bit funny. It certainly is suspicious that all four of you are absent on the same day, Mr. Bingham comments. John's father called the school about his aunt's funeral, and I have Richie's note about his cold. Richie fakes a sneeze and a cough. But, Mr. Bingham continues, you two don't have any real excuse, do you? No, sir, Dan and I answer in unison. Mr. Bingham doesn't make us say who told us that there wasn't any school, but he's going to call our parents. I figure that Mr. Bingham is smart enough to know that John and Richie made up their excuse, and he'll call their parents too. So I tell John that during lunch. I also ask him why he played a mean trick on us. Who cares if Bingham calls my mother, he says. What's she going to do about it? And it wasn't a mean thing to do. I did it for your own good. You're getting too serious about school. You're getting too serious about everything, really. I figured you needed the day off to get back to your Joker's Club attitude. Lighten up, man. What's the big deal, Richie asks. We cut all the time last year. I only cut 3 times, I tell him. That's why my father's so strict with me this year. I'm going to get in big trouble because of cutting yesterday. Me too, Dan says. Big trouble. Everybody in the class got a good laugh out of it, John says, and you had fun yesterday. Admit it. Not enough fun to make up for what my father's going to do to me. I don't tell them that I'm also worried that Mr. Dithers won't let me make up the social studies test. That after all the studying I've done, he's going to give me a failing grade because I cut. I'm about to bite into the cafeteria's version of individual pizza pie when the guys at the 8th grade table call over to me, Hey, Brian, there's no school on Monday. They have to sweep the cafeteria. This gets a good laugh from the 6th and 7th grade tables. I yell back, Here's something for them to sweep up, and throw my pizza at them frisbee style. It hits Mac on the sleeve, saw side up before dropping to the floor. Everyone in the cafeteria is cheering and laughing. Richie, John, and Dan scratch, so Isabel throws her pizza at them, making a bullseye on the back of Richie's head. I get the Joker points for the day, and Isabel and I get lunchroom detention for all of the next week.